Today I'm making another little girl's dress, but this time I'm using sheer fabric. I am going to be using this purple fabric that is on the sheer side, but I'm going to make it fully reversible with this other sheer fabric, so that way it'll make one not sheer dress. So I've got sheer fabrics, I have a reversible garment, I'm going to try to do a tiered ruffle at the bottom, and I'm doing all of this with my great friend Michelle over at Michelle Sews Again to help raise awareness for Alzheimer's disease. So this dress, if it doesn't kill me, is going to be my entry for hashtag So Purple to End ALZ 22. I've decided that I'm going to use the Girls Allison tent dress by Jerae Desiree again, and this is the smaller version. I'm actually making a larger version this time. You all, this is a free PDF pattern for this month only, and I'll be sure to link to it along with the code that you'll have to use to get it for free down in the description box below. But I'm making this dress using this linen fabric that was actually donated to me by one of my work colleagues that I used to work with, who had a mother who unfortunately suffered from Alzheimer's. So I thought, well, what a fabulous tribute. You know, not only am I using these fabrics for the intended purpose for which I was actually given them for, which was to make little girl dresses for donation, but to also use them to help raise awareness for ALZ. So let's kind of do a sew and chat. All right, so here I'm working on my ruffle. Now, I told you that this dress, I'm trying to do reversible. And well, this tiered ruffle, I don't think was the best plan I've ever had. And the reason being because I got lazy with the serger and I decided not to switch out my thread, and that was a really bad call because look at how jarring my serger thread looks. I did end up switching it out, and then my serger decided it was not happy with me, and yeah, my beautiful rolled hem turned into a surged hem. You all, this this serger and I, before we're done with this dress, we're gonna have it out. I'm not taking its stuff anymore. Since I did switch out the serger thread to this lighter purple, what I've decided is I'm going to flip this down and I'm just going to sew it down like that. So that way it covers that bright pink thread. And I think it'll actually look kind of cute. It'll give it a bit of a different look. So I'm pretty excited about the way that that's going to turn out. Hang on, I need to get a new bobbin. So Michelle's running this challenge over on Instagram, and the hashtag is hashtag So Purple to End ALZ 22. And she is doing this to raise awareness for Alzheimer's, and ideally money for it as well. As it turns out, this disease is actually one of the most underfunded diseases out there when it comes to research. And there is no cure for it. There is no way to slow the disease down. I mean, there's no real good solution for it. And if you've never actually had or known anyone who had the disease, it can actually be really hard on not only the person who is finding that they're having difficulty remembering things and people and events, but also on the family members. In Michelle's video, which I'll link down below, it's her kickoff video for this event, she discussed how her father's behavior had changed and how he went from being, really kind of like a even-keeled, not a hot-tempered guy, to being really kind of out of sorts and angry towards the end of the disease. and how that was really hard, you know, on everyone to see because it was, you know, his personality had just changed so much. It might help if I threaded my needle. My husband's grandmother, on his mother's side, also had dementia. I think Alzheimer's is actually a form of dementia. Well, she went from, you know, being Miss Prim and Proper to being quite crass and, you know, really angry. She was kind of confused, and it was really difficult for the family to have caretakers come in regularly and take care of her because, well, they couldn't take the abuse, you know. And it's so unfortunate because that is one of the really common side effects of this disease. It's one of the very common things that happens. So with this challenge, Michelle has laid out some rules, and she's actually decided that, hey, you can make anything purple to enter into this event, which is awesome. So if you want to make purple shoes, purple bags, purple anything, just sew something purple and tag her at the real Michelle Sews Again on Instagram and use the hashtag Sew Purple to End ALZ 22, and she will donate out of her pockets $1 for each entry. I intend on making her pay up. I really do. So I need to finish this dress. Those people who are motivated by prizes, there's a lot of really good prizes, and the winners are going to be randomly selected. Okay, so I'm not mad at that. Here is the right side, and then here will be the other side, which honestly I'm okay with too. I think that's still cute. So now I need to decide how I'm going to ruffle this top layer. Am I going to do it on my serger and attempt to wrestle him to the ground, or should I put in the double stitches? I think it's going to have to be on the sewing machine. We're going old school on this one with the 2 rows of basting stitches because Sergio is acting up. So let me go ahead and put in my 2 rows of stitching now while it's all still flat and open. Okay, so I moved on from the ruffles. I just needed to let my brain air out a little bit. And now I'm actually thinking about the pockets. So originally, I was going to do inseam pockets for both the pink and the purple version. But the more that I think about that, I think it's just going to provide a little too much bulk down in that area. I know I wouldn't really appreciate that. So I decided I'm going to do patch pockets. And the reason why I had to really kind of like take a step back and think about how I was going to attach these pockets is because this linen is so thin that if there's a lot of stress put on the pockets, and there will be at the corners, there's a possibility that it could rip a hole through the actual main fabric here, and these pockets will come off. And that's definitely not good for what we're trying to do. We want these dresses to last, right? So I've pinned on my patch pockets to the front of the dress here, and I do have labels sewn onto one of the pockets of each set, so that way each side will have pockets. So now what I need to do is reinforce the back of this pocket so that way it won't be accidentally torn off. And to do that, I'm going to use these little strips of twill tape that I have in my stash. If you don't have twill tape, to reinforce the back of your pockets, there's a couple of other things you can actually use. You can use bias tape. It could be store-bought or homemade. Or you could even use the selvage edge of your fabric, because that tends to be super woven. Or another option, and I don't have that here, would be grosgrain ribbon to sew over. Okay, so now I have both sets of pockets attached to both parts of my dresses. Now I'm going to go ahead and close up the shoulders, and actually mine are already sewn, but I'm also going to do the side seams on both the dresses. At this point, I now have two Allison tent dresses. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip one inside out. Now I want to slip the other dress so that my right sides are together inside with the fronts facing each other. I'm just going to match up my seams right here at the shoulders. And pin those in place, because we're going to work on this neckline first. So now I am going to take this neckline over to my sewing machine, and I'm actually going to sew this at a 1-inch seam allowance. The seam allowance that the pattern calls for is a 1/2 inch, but I think I want to provide a bit more space for a child's head to get through this neckline, so I'm going to take this at a 1-inch seam allowance. And now with my dress all pressed, this is what it's looking like. Typically, if I were just making this a straight Allison dress that was not reversible, I would have understitched my the seam allowance on the inside to my facing piece. However, I don't want to do that because this will be reversible. So I am going to top stitch about 1/8 of an inch along this edge all the way around to secure this neckline in place. And now with that top stitched, this dress is really starting to come along. All that we have to finish are our armholes. Now, I'm going to make life a little easier on myself, and I'm going to play around with this Wonder Tape. Okay, so I have tape all the way along this purple edge. So I'm going to fold that under and fold this pink under, and I'm going to match up this tape all the way around the arm side. So that way both sides are folded in on themselves, so we have a nice edge there. And when that's all done, we're going to sew as close to that edge as possible. And so this is what my arm side look like when they're all sewn up, and let me show you what they look like on the other side. You see that? So that's a nice secure stitch, and I'm happy with how that is working out. Now back to the ruffle. Remember this ruffle? Well, I went ahead and I sewed it in the round, and I gathered the edges there. So now it's time to attach it to our dress. Now, because I am sewing this dress for Michelle's challenge, which is Sew Purple to End ALZ 22, I am going to treat this purple side like it is my main side. So I will attach my ruffle only to this purple part. I'm going to leave the pink inside part alone, and I'll attach the ruffle only to this side. Okay, so after you have it all pinned, sew it using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now I have my ruffle sewn on to the bottom of my dress, and you can see here that I pressed my seam allowance up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this layer And we're going to press it up 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to press that all the way around this dress. And then after this is pressed 3/8 of an inch up, we're going to cover this seam right here. And we're going to top stitch this down. But when we stitch, we're going to stitch right here in the ditch. And that will catch the very edge of this. And after you're done stitching in the ditch, this is what that bottom ruffle is going to look like. You see that? Here are my final thoughts. I really like the fact that it's a reversible dress with the patch pockets. And I feel like the patch pockets are just really well reinforced. They're not going anywhere. If I were to do this again, there's a couple of things that I would do differently. First off, I would choose a fabric that looked the same on both sides. I'm not sure why that didn't dawn on me the first time around, but I think it would have made a big difference in the end look of this dress. I still don't mind the muted look on this side of with the ruffles, but that is something to keep in mind. The two things that I would definitely change for next time. First off, I'm going to throw this fabric away. It was a nightmare to sew with. The loose weave just started ruffling itself at a crazy amount on my sewing machine and my serger. My threads were breaking on it. It definitely wasn't a great fabric to sew. Not only that, but it was a sheer fabric as well. So, I mean, it really wasn't great to start with for this project. But we did end up with a dress that is suitable to wear. You can't see my hand through that anymore, which is fantastic. The second thing I would do differently is I would not do a tiered ruffle like this on the bottom of the dress. Next time I would just do one big old long extended ruffle, so that way I wouldn't have to worry about trying to hide all of the seams and everything. It would just be the one seam that is on the side that I would have to fold over, and then everything else would get captured in on the the inside when you stitch in the ditch. So overall, I think it's a really beautiful dress, and I really do hope that some little girl's gonna love this and that she wears it on both sides, because it almost made me cry, so I hope it makes her happy. Let me know what you think about making a reversible dress from some of the more sheer fabrics that you have. I'd love to hear about it. And if you have any suggestions to make this entire process go a little nicer, I'd be happy to take those. I have 2 video recommendations for you. If you're aware of the Alzheimer's challenge that Michelle is running, check out this video right over here. But if you're not, check out her kickoff video, which has tons of information and links in the description box for you. And until next time, I hope that you find joy and have a wonderful day.